In a shocking and brave act of survival, an 85-year-old woman from Bingham County, Idaho, found herself in the middle of a dangerous situation when an intruder broke into her home. It was a cold, snowy morning, and everything was quiet in the neighborhood. But at around 2 a.m., a man named Derek Condon made a deadly mistake by choosing this woman's house as his target. What happened next was nothing short of incredible. The elderly woman had been sound asleep when the intruder entered her home. He didn't knock or ring the doorbell. Instead, he broke into the house through a back window, using burglary tools to get inside. The 85-year-old woman had no idea what was happening until it was too late. She was suddenly hit over the head with a gun. Stunned and frightened, she didn't know who the man was or what he wanted. But the intruder wasn't there to chat. He was there to steal. The man demanded to know where the woman kept her valuables. He wanted to know where her most precious items were hidden. Terrified, the elderly woman didn't have many options. She couldn't fight back, at least not yet. She could only watch as the man ransacked the house, going through room after room, searching for things to take. But little did he know, this was not going to be an easy target. After searching for a while, the intruder decided to do something even more frightening. He forced the woman out of the living room and into the kitchen. There, he handcuffed her to a chair, leaving her stuck and helpless. It was a terrifying moment for the elderly woman. She could hardly believe what was happening to her. But despite the fear, she remained calm. She knew she had to think quickly if she was going to survive this. The intruder went on with his search, unaware that the elderly woman was far from helpless. As he looked for more things to steal, the woman's mind was racing. She remembered something important. She had a way to protect herself. She was no ordinary grandmother. In fact, she had been a member of the Olympic shooting team and was also the owner of a gun shop. She wasn't going to just sit there and let this man get away with what he was doing. As the intruder went downstairs to continue his search, the elderly woman saw an opportunity. She knew she had to act fast. Using all the strength she had, she dragged the chair she was handcuffed to into her bedroom. There, hidden under her pillow, was a .357 handgun she had kept for protection. The woman managed to grab the gun and hide it, waiting for the intruder to come back into the room. And then, when he finally returned, she was ready. The woman quickly took action, firing 2 shots at the intruder. She hit him, but he wasn't down yet. In fact, the intruder fired back, hitting her multiple times. Despite the pain from the gunshot wounds, the elderly woman didn't give up. She had been trained in shooting, and she knew how to handle a gun. Even though she was handcuffed and injured, she wasn't going to let this man hurt her or take anything from her without a fight. The struggle between the woman and the intruder grew even more intense. She had been shot multiple times, but she was still fighting for her life. The woman who had spent her life around guns used her training and strength to keep herself in the fight. The intruder, on the other hand, was slowly starting to lose control of the situation. As the elderly woman sat handcuffed to the chair, her heart pounding and her body bruised and bloodied, the intruder's efforts to escape his fate began to falter. Derek Condon, the 39-year-old man who had broken into her home, was starting to lose control of the situation. The woman, still reeling from the pain of multiple gunshot wounds, had proven herself far more resilient than he had anticipated. The intruder's movements became erratic as his own injuries began to take their toll. His body was drenched in blood, and the shock of his own wounds had started to set in. Despite the growing pain and the increasing likelihood that he wouldn't survive, Condon tried desperately to make his way toward the exit, staggering across the room with whatever strength he had left. He knew deep down that the woman had won this fight, but he wasn't ready to face the consequences of his actions. He was going to try to flee, to get away from the chaos he had started. But it was too late. The woman had already ensured that this night would be his last. The victim, despite her own critical condition, had made sure that the intruder didn't get away. She had shot him twice, with one of the bullets hitting him square in the chest. He had dropped to the floor, but it wasn't the end for him just yet. He had managed to crawl a few feet away, but his strength quickly faded. The deputies, arriving on the scene, would soon find him lying there, bleeding out, unable to escape. Once the deputies arrived, they immediately began to assess the scene. They quickly identified the woman, who was still handcuffed to the chair, and then turned their attention to the body of Derek Condon, now lying in the kitchen. The officers moved carefully around the crime scene, ensuring not to disturb any potential evidence as they began piecing together the details of what had unfolded in the hours prior. The deputies soon discovered a trail of footprints outside the house, evidence that the intruder had entered through the back window, as previously suspected. The snow had preserved his exact path, and investigators used this clue to track his movements. The footprints led straight to the home, where they found the door and window that had been forced open. From there, the investigation continued as the officers methodically analyzed each part of the house, trying to piece together how the break-in had gone from a burglary attempt to a life-threatening altercation. Inside the home, the deputies found multiple firearms. One gun, which had been used by the elderly woman, was found right next to her, along with the spent shell casings scattered nearby. The weapon, a .357 revolver, had played a pivotal role in the elderly woman's defense. She had kept it hidden under her pillow, waiting for the perfect moment to act. That moment had come when the intruder returned to the room and gave her the chance to fight back. The weapon, which had been a lifeline for her, was carefully examined by the investigators. It was clear that she had used it expertly, shooting with precision despite the shock and pain from her injuries. As the deputies continued to search the house, they found other guns that had belonged to the intruder. It appeared that Condon had been carrying several firearms, and some of them were found in the areas he had rummaged through during his search for valuables. He had likely thought the elderly woman was an easy target, an 85-year-old woman alone in her home. But as soon as she had been handcuffed to the chair and left vulnerable, Condon had underestimated her determination to survive. While the deputies focused on securing the crime scene, medical teams were already on their way to help the woman. She had been shot at least 7 times, and the blood loss was severe. Despite her injuries, her survival instinct remained strong. She knew that every second mattered, and the fact that she had survived this long was nothing short of miraculous. The medical teams had to act fast as they tried to stabilize her, moving her carefully from the scene to transport her to the hospital. Back at the house, detectives began questioning family members of the intruder to try to understand why he would target an elderly woman. They learned that Condon had been off his medication recently, which may have contributed to his reckless and violent behavior. However, his family could offer no clear reason for why he would commit such an act. They were just as shocked and confused by the events that had unfolded. The elderly woman's story began to spread, and people were in awe of her courage. A grandmother, handcuffed to a chair, shot multiple times, and still managing to defend herself and survive, became a symbol of strength and resilience. News outlets covered her incredible fight for survival, and many expressed admiration for her quick thinking and bravery. Her actions were not only heroic, but also a testament to the power of determination in the face of unimaginable odds. The woman's experience had been both horrifying and miraculous. She had lived through the nightmare of being attacked in her own home by an armed intruder. But in the end, it was her knowledge, experience, and sheer will to survive that had turned the tables on her attacker. Her bravery in the face of danger was undeniable, and her story would resonate with many for a long time to come. As medical professionals worked tirelessly to stabilize her and ensure her survival, the investigation continued. Detectives would spend the next few days piecing together the details of Derek Condon's life and what had led him to commit such a violent crime. The authorities would also continue to investigate the possibility of other crimes connected to Condon's actions. The situation was far from over, and the community was left grappling with the aftermath of such a shocking event. But as the days went on, one thing became abundantly clear. The elderly woman had shown the world the true meaning of courage. Despite being vulnerable, despite the overwhelming odds, she had fought back, and against all expectations, she had survived. The investigation into Derek Condon's life began to unfold, and as more details emerged, the disturbing nature of his actions started to make sense. While authorities had only just begun to piece together the full scope of his criminal activities, one thing became clear. Condon's life had been filled with instability and a lack of direction that might have led to this tragic moment.